Hey guys, tonight we drift into the golden haze of the Caribbean, where cannonballs fly, the rum never seems to run out, and your earlobes are pierced for reasons far stranger than wooden galleon, the salty wind tugging at your bandana, the scent of gunpowder still clinging to your coat. The sun sets behind you in a blaze of orange and blood-red light, and hanging from your ear is a golden hoop that tells a story even your captain might not know. You're not just playing dress-up out here. That earring you're wearing, it's not for looks, mate. It's survival. It's a superstition. It's status. It's maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. The crew yells and laughs, their earrings glinting like tiny suns. Some wear single gold hoops. Others have strings of pearls, rubies, bits of bone or twisted silver talismans hanging from their ears, like they're hosting a flea market of their sins. But for all the variety, one thing's clear. These earrings are never just decoration. You probably won't survive this life, by the way. Just saying. Average pirate lifespan? About 2 years. The sea's got more patience than pity, and nobody retires from piracy with a pension plan. Which makes what you wear, even the tiniest bit of metal through your ear, something of a will written in gold. Your own earring feels heavy. A thick band of beaten gold, etched with a strange little skull. You remember the sting when it was driven through your ear and port. No needle, just a heated nail and a strong drink. But the pain was worth it, because here's the thing, no pirate worth his salt sets sail without it. In the bustling ports of Tortuga or Port Royal, earrings serve as calling cards. The right earring tells a tavern wench that you've plundered a Spanish galleon. It tells a fence that you've got coins to spend. It might even tell the local priest to say a quick blessing if your body ever washes ashore with a musket ball in the gut. But what you might not know is that pirates didn't invent the earring thing, not by a long shot. Earrings have been around for literal millennia. Ancient Persians wore them. So did Egyptians, Greeks, and Chinese emperors. Sailors, in particular, have worn earrings for hundreds of years, even long before the word pirate made anyone picture a guy with a parrot and questionable hygiene. And for sailors, the earring was practical. In the era before ID cards, birth certificates, or Google searches, your earring often carried your name, home port, and sometimes the amount of gold sewn into your clothes, just in case your body needed identification after a shipwreck. Lovely thought, right? Ah yes, this bloated man with one leg is from Bristol. Says so right here on his earring. There was also the belief, half myth, half desperate hope, that an earring of pure gold could pay for a decent burial if you died far from home. That's why some sailors and pirates splurged on that little bit of precious metal. It wasn't just vanity, it was prepaid funeral insurance dangling from your lobe. A way of saying, even in death, I'd prefer not to be tossed in a ditch, thank you very much. Still, historians debate just how common this really was. Some argue the whole burial fee explanation is romantic nonsense invented later by novelists and sea shanty writers. Others swear by it, pointing to old ship logs and sailors' journals that mention rings inscribed with names, prayers, or home ports. As with most pirate lore, the truth likely lies somewhere between wishful thinking and rotting seaweed. What is certain, though, is that by the 1600s and 1700s, the so-called golden age of piracy, earrings were everywhere on the high seas, and they weren't all gold either. Pirates weren't picky. Silver, brass, bone, ivory, glass. If it could be looped through an ear, someone was wearing it. Some even wore bits of coins, tiny daggers, or shrunken charms said to bring good luck or bad dreams, depending on your level of guilt and how much rum you'd had. Your ship's cook, old Miri, swears his ivory ring keeps the spirits of drowned sailors from whispering to him at night. You're not sure if it works, but you do know he hasn't slept more than 3 hours in a row since Cartagena. Coincidence? Even the location of the earring on your ear mattered to some. Left ear meant one thing, right ear another. Some sailors said the left ear was closer to the heart, so gold worn there helped keep the soul anchored. Others thought certain points on the ear, when pierced, improved eyesight or calmed seasickness. Acupuncture at sea, basically, but administered by your drunk crewmate with a dirty knife. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, there's always the possibility that earrings were simply cool. Pirates were rebels, after all. Outlaws? Why wouldn't they dress like it? In an age when law-abiding folks wore buttoned vests and powdered wigs, pirates strutted around in flamboyant sashes, boots to the knee and earrings that jingled when they yelled. Maybe it was about identity as much as utility. You were your own man out here, at least until the next musket ball decided otherwise. One quiet night, you lean against the gunwale, fingers brushing the edge of your earring. You think about the gold, not its price, but its weight. It feels solid, like a tether to something, home maybe. Or just the fact that if you vanish beneath the waves tonight, some poor soul might tug your bloated corpse from the surf and read your name scratched into the inside of the hoop. Then again, maybe they won't. Maybe the earring will be pocketed, melted down, sold at the next port for a sack of moldy biscuits and a bottle of spiced rum. Either way, the story continues. So, yeah, that pirate earring, it's not just fashion. It's your identity, your insurance, your tiny glittering scream into the void. And tomorrow, when a storm rolls in and the mizzenmast cracks and you're flung into the hungry waves, that earring might be the only thing left to mark that you were ever here at all. You grip the rope ladder with one hand, a half-eaten mango in the other, as the ship gently lists toward the sunrise. Behind you, the crew stirs from hammocks and rum-induced. And then, without warning, your brain whispers something morbid. If I die today, what happens to my body? Not the cheeriest thought to have with tropical fruit in your mouth, but one that every pirate has tucked away beneath the bravado. Because out here, bodies disappear. Men fall overboard during storms and vanish like coins into the sea. Cannonballs turn torsos into red mist. The reef eats your bones and doesn't even leave a receipt. So what do? You plan ahead. Not with paperwork. This isn't the Navy. You do it with your earring. That little loop of gold swinging from your lobe isn't just flashy. It's a bribe, a payment. A quiet deal struck with whatever stranger might find your corpse bloated on a shore, miles from anywhere you've ever called home. See, some pirates, and even more regular sailors, believed that gold earrings could cover funeral expenses if they died far from home. This wasn't just some poetic gesture. It was practical, brutal, and deeply human. If you die on land and no one knows who you are, your body might be burned, buried in a shallow pit, or dumped in a ditch. But if they find a golden earring, that says something. That says, hey, I'm worth a little effort. Even better, many of those earrings were engraved. Tiny script on the inside or outside. Names, birthplaces. Maybe even the phrase, "Bury me properly, you miserably sober landlubber." If you were lucky, the person who found you might take the hint. Use the gold to pay a gravedigger or a priest, say a prayer, lay you in the earth with at least a palm frond over your face, and even if they didn't, well, the earring meant you'd at least be noticed. Not dumped into the ocean for fish to finish, not picked apart by birds or crabs. You might not get a marble headstone, but you'd be remembered for a minute. There's a reason this belief stuck around. Picture it, a lonely stretch of beach somewhere near Hispaniola. A fisherman's son spots something half buried in the surf. He pokes it with a stick. It's a body, waterlogged and greenish. But then, he sees the gleam. A thick gold ring in the ear. The boy's father knows what it means. Maybe they wrap the body in linen, say a few words, dig a hole under the coconut tree. Not out of kindness, but out of custom, because that's what you do when you see the gold. And sure, some folks took the earring and left the body to rot. Let's not kid ourselves. Piracy didn't attract saints. But the idea was there, the code. The gold earring wasn't just shiny, it was sacred. Of course, not every earring came with that kind of sentiment. Some pirates wore earrings they stole off corpses, melted them down, traded them for gunpowder, grog, or a slightly better pistol. Still, the tradition clung on. Funeral money in the ear, a pirate's last insurance policy. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or more myth than reality. Some say it's exaggerated, that only a handful of sailors ever inscribed their earrings with such purpose. Others believe it was as common as tattoos or bad teeth on the high seas. Either way, stories persist, too many to dismiss entirely. One particularly strange tale comes from the logs of an English merchant ship in the early 1700s. The crew found a drifting boat. No sail, no rudder, just bobbing aimlessly near Barbados. Inside, the bodies of 5 men, starved and dehydrated. One of them had a gold earring etched with his name and the phrase, "Return to Nassau. Bury with coin." The captain, moved, or maybe just superstitious, kept his word. He sailed the body back to Nassau and arranged for a burial, using the gold to pay the gravedigger and priest. The story went around the port like wildfire, and soon every green sailor wanted a gold earring, just in case. You brush your own earring now, wondering what message you might carve into it if you ever found someone with steady enough hands. Tell my parrot I tried. Or maybe just your name and hometown, which you barely remember after all these years. There's something strangely comforting about the idea, though. The thought that one tiny piece of jewelry might buy you peace at the end. That someone, somewhere, might see it and choose to treat your death with a little respect. Even if you spent your life breaking laws and stealing from half the empires of Europe. Some pirates went even further. They'd stitch coins into their jackets, tuck bits of silver into their boots, or hide gold rings in their belts. Anything that might be found and used to bury them properly. You had to plan for death when you lived in a world of sudden endings. But still, the earring was most common. Easy to wear, hard to lose, and always visible. If your ship exploded, your body might be unrecognizable, but your earring would still shine in the ash. There's also the psychology of it. When you're living a violent life, storm chasing, sword fighting, cannon dodging, you cling to rituals. The earring became part of the pirate psyche. Not just fashion, but identity, symbol, statement, a whispered prayer dangling from your ear. Not all pirates wore gold for this reason, of course. Some were just showing off. A few were copying older sailors, of sheer bloody-minded habit. Why not? They'd say. It jingles when I nod. But for many, the earring was a last will and testament in miniature. No paperwork, no courtroom. Just a piece of precious metal and the hope that someone would honor the deal, even after you stopped breathing. You imagine it now, your own body, laid out on a beach somewhere, the sun burning hot above you. A curious child crouches near your shoulder, sees the earring, runs to tell her father. He comes, mutters something in Spanish, and gently pries the gold ring from your ear. Maybe he feels a moment of pity, Maybe he nods to the sky, and maybe, just maybe, he pays the gravedigger. And then, long after you're gone, the story spreads. A pirate buried with honor, they'll say in whispers. All because of a little gold. So tomorrow, when you set sail again, know this. Your earring isn't just jewelry. It's your legacy, your last word, your shimmering plea to be remembered. The wind bites harder today. The sea's gone steel gray, a sullen bruise stretching from horizon to horizon, and the sails above you groan like ghosts in a bad mood. You're tying knots on the main deck, the rope rough under your calloused fingers when someone shouts, "Storm coming!" The crew scatters, barrels lashed, hatches sealed, but you? Your hand drifts to your earring again, almost out of reflex. Funny, isn't it? That little piece of gold's seen more storms than most humans. And it's not just a funeral plan. It's a good luck charm. At least that's what you tell yourself, because everyone out here's a little superstitious. You kind of have to be. When you're dancing with death every other Tuesday, you cling to whatever talisman lets you sleep at night. And earrings? Oh, they're loaded with superstition. One old belief, still whispered among the older deckhands when the sky darkens and the rum runs dry, is that a gold earring improves your eyesight. Not just slightly, miraculously. Some pirates swore that piercing a specific point on the lobe boosted your vision like magic spyglass juice. Pressure on a key nerve, they'd say, pointing to their ears. Right there, that's the spot. Now I can see the shoreline 3 leagues off. Couldn't even find my shoes yesterday. Historians roll their eyes at this one, of course. There's no science to back it. But remember, these were men with no formal education, no glasses, and a lot of sea spray in their faces. If sticking metal in your ear felt like it helped, then, hey, maybe it did. The placebo effect in full swashbuckling glory. Then there's the seasickness myth. Some sailors believed that earrings could prevent nausea if worn on the correct side of the body. They'd swear up and down that the moment the gold went in, their stomachs settled. Others went even more mystical, claiming that earrings warded off drowning. Wear it in the left ear, one grizzled helmsman once told you. And the sea can't take you. That's the listening ear. The ocean respects that. You didn't exactly buy it. But then again, you haven't drowned yet. Superstitions like these are everywhere in pirate culture, especially when it comes to the body. Tattoos of mermaids to protect against shipwrecks. Charms made of fish bones. Amulets from voodoo markets in Haiti. Some captains wore dead men's teeth around their necks. One man, Mad Pierre of Martinique, sewed bits of octopus tentacle into his hatband, claiming it kept storms away. Spoiler, it didn't. But earrings? They were personal, always there, touched often, imbued with stories and fears. You didn't lend them out or trade them unless you were desperate. And even then, you hesitated. Because an earring wasn't just metal, it was you. That's probably why some pirates never removed theirs, even when they slept. They'd tell you it was about not losing it, but really, they were guarding the luck. If the earring protected your soul from drowning, you didn't want it rolling under a hammock or bouncing into the bilge. Still, not every sailor wore one out of belief. Some did it to mark moments. That hoop in your ear right now? You earned it. After your first successful raid, when the Spanish merchant ship coughed up crates of silver and saffron, you bought it from a jeweler in Port Royal. Paid 5 coins, a bottle of rum, and a favor you still owe. It hurt like hell going in, and the infection gave you a fever for days. But you kept it because it meant something. Lots of pirates marked milestones with piercings. First kill, first capture, surviving a mutiny, escaping prison, making it past 30. For a pirate, that's basically a lifetime achievement award. Each earring was a badge, a story carved in skin and metal. And there's something primal about it, right? You're not writing memoirs. You're not carving statues. But you're altering your body, stamping it with your own history. One hoop at a time. Some crews even had rules about it. The infamous Calico Jack reportedly insisted that new recruits get their ears pierced after their first loot. Not optional, a mark of initiation. Join the crew, bleed a little, wear the ring. His crew must have clinked like wind chimes in a storm. Another captain, a Spaniard turned rogue named El Rojo, had his crew wear earrings made from melted down enemy coins. They'd raid a ship, collect currency, and fashion earrings from the spoils. So we hear their curses every time it jingles, he once joked. Morbid? Absolutely. Effective? Weirdly, yes. There was a symbolic defiance in it, too. Think about the world these pirates came from. Rigid, class-based, uptight. In many European societies, men wearing earrings were frowned upon or mocked. So, of course, pirates embraced it. Earrings were rebellion, a middle finger in jewelry form. You weren't nobility, you weren't polished. You were a rogue with sea salt in your beard and a dagger in your boot. And your earring, that was your coat of arms. The cultures they encountered added layers to it. In West Africa, many tribes had their own traditions of ear piercing for spiritual reasons. In the Caribbean, Arawak and Taino peoples wore adornments made of bone and shell, symbols of power or ancestry. Pirates picked up those influences fast. They were cultural thieves as much as treasure ones. Your own earring, now that you think about it, might be a blend. Gold from Spain, inscribed by a Jamaican smith, worn by a runaway from Liverpool. A pirate's life in miniature. Of course, some pirates wore fake earrings, cheap brass or gilded wood. Others wore real ones, but claimed they were fake to avoid getting stabbed in their sleep. There's always someone more desperate, after all. And some men wore more than one, both ears. Sometimes 2 or 3 hoops each, piercing after piercing. Not just fashion, but ritual. You could track a pirate's career by his ears. The more holes, the longer the story. So when the wind howls and the deck lurches and you grab for the rigging, remember this. That bit of metal in your ear is more than just a trinket. It's armor, magic, milestone, memory. A whole personal mythology looped through your flesh. And maybe, just maybe, it is keeping the sea from swallowing you whole. The storm breaks around midnight and you ride it like a drunken rodeo. Lightning rips the sky in wild veins, the kind that make you wonder if the heavens are trying to draw maps on the clouds. Salt lashes your face. Every time the deck rises, your stomach drops like an anchor. But you survive, just barely. And when the worst of it fades, you're still clinging to the mast, your earring glinting faintly in the moonlight like it's smirking. Told you I'd keep you alive. When morning comes, the sky clears, and the crew gets back to the business of pretending death isn't always tapping on the shoulder. Someone hauls out a fiddle. Someone else finds half a barrel of rum that didn't spill. And you, still wired from the storm, wander over to old Danton, your ship's unofficial historian and full-time gossip. Danton's earlobe sags from the weight of his hoop. Heavy gold, probably worth more than anything else on his creaky body. Want to know who started all this earring madness? He says, not waiting for an answer. Blame the ancients. He means it too. Turns out pirates didn't invent the idea of gold in the ear, not by a long shot. Ancient sailors were already doing it as centuries, millennia, before you ever stepped on a sloop. The roots go back deep. We're talking Greek, Roman, Phoenician deep. The ancient Greeks believed earrings could act as spiritual protectors, especially for those traveling over water. The ocean, to them, was chaos, divine, untamable, and deeply moody. Sailors heading out into Poseidon's backyard wore talismans to ward off the bad stuff. Sometimes it was amulets, sometimes tattoos. Often it was earrings, small, circular ones made of gold or bronze. The Romans took it even further. In some periods, sailors wore gold earrings engraved with their family crest or their unit's symbol. That way, if they drowned in battle or shipwrecked, their bodies could be identified. Sound familiar? It's almost the exact logic pirates would later adopt. Just swap Roman aqueducts for Caribbean coves and togas for less pants. But here's a quirk. In ancient Egypt, earrings were sometimes believed to protect against evil spirits that entered through the ears. Yep. Your lobe was a spiritual backdoor, apparently, and the earring, that was your lock. It's a belief that didn't vanish, it mutated. By the time earrings hit pirate culture, that notion of spiritual armor hadn't gone away. It just picked up some tattoos and a drinking problem along the way. Historians still argue whether these ancient practices directly influenced pirate customs, or if it was more of a cultural remix. Traditions passed hand to hand across centuries of sailing men, each one adding his own spin. But the through line is clear. People on ships, facing uncertain death, have always clung to symbols of protection. And few things are as symbolic or portable as a piece of gold in your ear. Now, fast forward to the Renaissance, where things get extra spicy. During the 15th and 16th centuries, seafaring exploded. The Spanish and Portuguese were crossing oceans. The Dutch and British were building navies. And suddenly the sea was full of men who didn't expect to come home. It's around this time that the gold earring began appearing in artwork, not just on pirates, but on legit naval officers. One portrait of Sir Francis Drake, yes, that Drake, shows him with a delicate gold hoop in one ear. Not big, not flashy, but definitely there. Historians debate whether the portrait was accurate or just symbolic. But if even Drake wore one, then you can bet the sailors on his ships were following suit. And here's where the Caribbean enters the chat. By the late 1600s, pirate havens like Port Royal, Tortuga, and Nassau had become melting pots of languages, religions, and traditions. Sailors from Africa, Europe, and the Americas all collided in noisy, lawless ports. And with them came their beliefs, fears, and jewelry habits. Some African tribes wore earrings as symbols of status or tribal identity. In India and Persia, sailors might wear earrings for balance, literally. Traditional medicine held that the ear had pressure points that helped with equilibrium, which is a useful thing when the floor is always moving. All these ideas swirled together in the pirate soup pot. You ended up with crews where one guy wore an earring for spiritual protection, another for eyesight, and a third because his grandmother said it would stop his ear from rotting off in the rain. And honestly, nobody questioned it. You respected another man's magic, especially if he'd stabbed someone over it. Then there's the economic side of things. Back in Europe, the law often told the poor how they could or couldn't dress. Fancy jewelry was reserved for nobles. But at sea, all bets were off. If you stole a gold earring and you liked it, congrats, now it's yours. Class barriers meant nothing in a place where the only real authority was your ability to swing a cutlass without dropping it. Wearing gold in your ear became a pirate's middle finger to the world that cast him out. The cities that called him a criminal, The nobles that gave him scraps, the countries that sent him to war and forgot to pay him. Every gleam of metal in the lobe was a rebellion, and an inheritance from generations of sailors before. Back on deck, Danton finishes his monologue by wiggling his ear. "Mine came from a French nobleman," he says with a wink. "Well, technically, it came off a French nobleman. You try not to think too hard about what 'off' means in that sentence. Still, as the sun climbs and the sails fill with calmer wind, you realize he's right about one thing. Your earring connects you to a legacy older than piracy itself, a chain stretching back through centuries of sailors, warriors, wanderers, and gamblers who faced the unknown and wanted to be remembered. You touch the metal again. It's warm now. Not from luck or magic, probably. Just sun, but it still feels like armor. You're halfway through mending a split sail when a familiar voice crows from the rigging. "Oi! Another one's got himself a ruby stud." The crew erupts into laughter, and you glance over just in time to see young Jamie, barely more than a cabin boy, strutting across the deck with a gaudy red gem in his ear, far too large for his tiny head. He looks like a magpie mistook him for a treasure chest. The teasing doesn't bother him. In fact, he puffs up like a peacock. Because on a pirate ship, an earring isn't just jewelry, it's identity. And the more flamboyant, the louder it speaks, especially if it hints at how you got it. That's the thing. Pirate earrings weren't just about beliefs or luck charms. They were social signals, flashing messages about wealth, bravery, allegiance, or straight-up ego. Each piece of jewelry told a story. Some whispered, others screamed. You glance around the ship, suddenly seeing it differently. Take One-Eyed Rourke, for instance. His hoop is thick, dented, and scratched. The kind of thing that's been through 100 knife fights and probably a few bad marriages. He claims it's made from melted Aztec gold. No one believes him, but everyone wants to. Then there's Lucia La Serpiente, the quartermaster. Hers is delicate, an emerald set in a silver spiral, too fine to be pirate-made. Rumor has it she stole it off a Spanish duchess while dancing with her at a masquerade. La Serpiente never confirms it. She just smiles whenever someone brings it up. That earring is a conversation starter, a piece of drama tucked behind a lobe. And Danton, your favorite old liar, wears his earring with its dented rim and faded inscription like a medal. When you ask him what it says, he just grins and says, something in Latin. Or maybe it's just a bad spelling of freedom. Either way, he swears it saved his life during a mutiny in Barbados. The truth is, earrings were pirate business cards, calling cards, resumes. You wore one to announce who you were, how dangerous you might be, and, if needed, how expensive it'd be to bury you. Especially because, on many ships, earrings became part of the unofficial pirate dress code. Now, don't misunderstand, there was no central pirate fashion committee handing out gold studs and hook-hand coupons. But patterns developed. You wanted to be taken seriously as a sea wolf? You needed a few key accessories, a big hat, a scar or two, a dangerous limp, real or practiced, and a shiny bit of metal in your ear. The look mattered. Pirate culture, like most underground cultures, was built on reputation, on optics, on what you could sell. And an earring was one of the fastest ways to sell, I'm bold, I'm armed, and I'm not to be trifled with. It was also a way to say, I don't belong to your world. In port towns, especially the more polite ones like Bridgetown or Charleston, a man with a gold earring raised eyebrows. Sailors were already considered lower class, dirty, unpredictable, often drunk, but earrings added an extra layer of danger. It suggested you'd abandoned land society altogether, that you'd stopped caring what decent people thought. So when pirates strolled into town with earrings flashing and weapons jangling, it was like a fashion show of rebellion. The tavern girls loved it. The governors hated it. The barbers got nervous. And sometimes the earrings weren't just decorative, they were practical. Some pirates kept small picks or lockpicks looped into their earrings, hidden tools for sticky situations. One Corsican thief turned sailor famously escaped from a Spanish brig using the pin from his earring to unlock the door. Another carried a hollowed-out gold stud filled with ground-up tobacco for emergency situations, which, on a pirate ship, was every situation. Then there's the language of earrings. Yes, language, because pirates, like many tight-knit communities, developed their own visual code. For instance, wearing an earring in the left ear only, that often meant you were still green, new to sea life. Right ear only? You'd seen combat. Both ears? You'd survived something nasty and lived to brag about it. Dangling charm? Usually stolen. Jewel-encrusted stud? Either you had wealthy taste or a terrible gambling addiction. Some ships even adopted unofficial rules, like earning a silver earring for every 10 successful raids or requiring an engraved ring after surviving a shipwreck. You didn't have to follow them, but ignoring tradition could make things awkward around the rum barrel. One odd tradition: in some crews, piercing the ear of a crewmate during a storm was considered a way to bind their luck to yours. So if you were terrified you wouldn't survive, you'd jab your friend in the lobe and claim half his fate. Brutal, bloody, weirdly affectionate. Historians still argue whether this ritual had roots in voodoo, Mediterranean superstition, or just plain panic. But stories of storm bonding pop up in journals, court records, and ship logs, often enough to raise eyebrows and goosebumps. Of course, not every pirate chose their earring. Sometimes they were forced on them. Punishment piercings were a thing, especially among cruel captains. If you stole rum, you might lose a finger, but if you insulted the captain's parrot or snuck extra biscuits, well, you might find yourself with an unwanted nose ring or a chunk of iron shoved through your cartilage. The message? You don't own your face anymore. We do. Brutal, sure, but effective. Pirate society didn't exactly run on HR policies. And then there were the fakes. Some pirates, especially newer ones or those who'd lost their loot in a bad card game, wore brass or even painted wood. They'd coat it in wax to keep the sea from exposing the lie. But once it chipped, their secret was out. And let's just say there was nothing worse than being outed as a poser on a pirate ship. Even murder was more forgivable. That's why so many pirates went broke buying real gold earrings. Better to be penniless and respected than rich and ridiculed. And Jamie, the kid with the ruby stud, that thing's probably glass. But no one calls him out on it, not because we believe him, but because the confidence sells it. That's the real trick. Make the story believable, not the stone. By nightfall, the ship's rocking gently again. The wind has settled. The crew sprawled around a fire on the lower deck, swapping stories. Someone's carving a mermaid into the mast. You're oiling your blade when Jamie flops down beside you. He taps his earring. Looks good, yeah? You nod. Bought it off a peddler in Port-de-Paix. He said it belonged to a dead king. Let me guess, you say. A blind king with magic powers and an eye for affordable accessories? Jamie grins. Exactly. And you know what? You almost believe him. Because on a pirate ship, the story behind the earring is just as valuable as the gold. You wake up to a sky the color of ash, and the sea mumbling secrets under its breath. It's one of those mornings where everything smells like old rope and salt, and the ship creaks like it's telling ghost stories to itself. You roll out of your hammock, boots hitting the deck with a thunk, and you stretch just in time to hear shouting from the crow's nest. Ship on the horizon, sails dead east. Suddenly, the mood shifts, voices sharpen, ropes are pulled. The whole crew jolts into motion because the shape on the horizon could be anything. A merchant ripe for plundering, a warship you definitely don't want to flirt with, or, if you're very unlucky, another pirate ship looking to prove something. As you rush to help ready the sails, you catch a glint on nearly every face. Earrings flash in the morning light, gold, silver, copper, even bone, and you remember something Danton said last week over a cracked mug of rum. You can tell a crew's reputation by what's in their ears. The more metal, the more madness. And he wasn't wrong. In the lawless, floating underworld of the Caribbean, a pirate's reputation was everything. Not just to strike fear into the hearts of your enemies, but to make sure you even had a crew to sail with. And earrings? They weren't just flair. They were currency in the economy of reputation. Take Black Bart Roberts, for example, one of the most feared pirates of the Golden Age, known for his velvet clothes, extravagant manners, and, you guessed it, a sharp, polished earring that gleamed like a warning. His portrait, made long after his death, still shows it dangling like a royal decree from his lobe. And he wasn't alone. Plenty of pirate captains adopted flashy statement earrings as part of their look, their brand. Centuries before influencers made that a thing. But it wasn't just about intimidation. It was about belonging. When a pirate ship docked at a port, the earrings helped them identify friend from foe. Each ship had its own style, its own unofficial uniform. Some crews favored heavy gold hoops. Others wore pointed studs with emblems stamped into them, sea serpents, crossed sabers, the occasional middle finger. It was tribal, visual, fast. One glance at an earring and you could tell where a pirate had been, who he served with, and sometimes even what crimes he'd committed. A hoop with a jagged edge might mean he'd survived a sea battle in Havana. A twin set with mismatched stones might hint at time spent in the East Indies. A dangling tooth? Well, you hoped it was from a shark. Historians still argue whether these markings were agreed upon intentionally or just grew organically like tattoos or slang. Either way, pirates took it seriously. Try showing up in Tortuga with the wrong earring on the wrong side, and someone might take that as an invitation to duel, or worse, a declaration that you were a spy. The reputation economy extended beyond dress codes. If you were infamous enough, your earring could get you credit at a tavern. Put it on Dead Hand Jeb's tab, someone might say. You see the ruby in his ear? That's Jeb. And the barkeep, recognizing the tale behind the jewel, would pour the drink. Sometimes earrings acted as ID cards for safe houses. Pirate-friendly brothels or smugglers' dens had unspoken agreements with certain crews. You flashed your earring, they let you in. You didn't? Doors stayed shut. One wrong look and you'd find yourself sleeping in an alley, or worse, waking up missing an ear. The most fascinating part? Earrings didn't just display reputation, they were used to build it. Let's say you just joined a crew and had nothing to your name but a borrowed cutlass and a nervous stutter. You couldn't buy your way into respect, but you could earn it through battle, bravery, or pure luck. Survive a skirmish? You might be awarded a bronze ring. Take down an officer during a boarding raid? That could earn you a gold stud and a place in the ship's oral legend. Some captains even held ceremonies, small, drunken affairs after victories where an earring was pressed into a crewmate's palm and slid through his ear, either freshly pierced or forcefully reopened. Your lobe throbbed for a week, but your name, that got remembered. And once you'd made a name for yourself, your earring became something to defend. Lose it in a bar fight, and you'd have to win it back, or steal something better. Have it taken in battle, that stung worse than a stab wound. One tale tells of a pirate named Caldero who hunted a rival for 2 years just to reclaim a single jade earring. When he finally got it back, he wore it backward, stone facing in, as a reminder. Of course, some pirates used earrings to reinvent themselves entirely. Change your earring, change your story. If you were fleeing a past, a mutiny gone bad, a failed coup, an ex-wife with a voodoo doll, you could swap out your hoop for a stud, your copper for bone, and sail under a new name. As long as no one recognized your face, your ear did the talking. There were even pirates who wore fake earrings on purpose, not out of poverty, but as a ruse. They'd present themselves as rookies, nobodies, not worth the trouble. Then, when the blades came out, they moved like demons and left no survivors. Those kinds of pirates were called shadows, and their earrings were always just a little off, like the glint in their eyes. The ship ahead is close now. Your crew's readying grappling hooks. Your pulse is thrumming, your fingers twitching near your blade. You glance at the nearest face, Tomas, the bosun, and his earring gleams bright against his dark skin. It's shaped like a hook, and you know the story. He lost a finger once, replaced it with iron, then wore that earring to match. A symbol of resilience, of teeth-gritted survival. You touch your own earring, feel the dull edge of the hoop, and suddenly you're aware of how visible it makes you. How loud. How bold. But that's the point, isn't it? In a world where your name could vanish with the tide, an earring is something that remembers. You leap forward with the others, your boots slamming onto the other ship's deck, and as the chaos erupts around you, swords clashing, curses flying, bodies stumbling, you move like a shadow, like a storm, like a man whose earring says, "I've earned this." The sea is calm today, but you know better. That glassy smoothness, that too quiet lull, it's not kindness, it's patience. Like the ocean is waiting for something to slip, to splinter, to snap. You lean against the railing, windless air pressing on your skin like a sweaty shirt, and stare out into the nowhere. Somewhere out there, beneath the dark folds of the water, lie the bones of 100 ships and the secrets of 1,000 years. Because for all their flash and swagger, pirate earrings weren't just about bravado, not even close. Some of them were talismans, tiny shields against bad luck. Others were more functional. And some were there to speak from the grave. Let's start with the basics. Superstition. Pirates were deeply superstitious. You had to be. Really? You're in a floating coffin made of creaky wood and tar, surrounded by sharks and armed enemies and your own crew's bad decisions. You need every scrap of luck you can get. So it wasn't just cool to wear an earring, it was smart. One common belief was that gold earrings improved eyesight. Yes, really. Some pirates swore that the pressure of the ring on the earlobe stimulated something magic, or at least vaguely medical, that sharpened your vision. Historians still argue whether this was just convenient wishful thinking or based on old Eastern medicine ideas that trickled in through the trade routes. Either way, it stuck. And hey, if you're aiming a musket from a bouncing ship deck, you'll take all the help you can get, even placebo gold magic. But it didn't stop at eyesight. Some pirates believed their earrings could protect them from drowning, not in a floaty way, more in a spiritual insurance policy kind of way. See, lots of pirates had their names, or the names of their ships, engraved inside their gold earrings. Others had religious symbols etched in, tiny crosses, stars, even Latin prayers so small you had to squint to read them. The logic was simple. If your body washed ashore after a storm, the earring might help identify you and ensure you got a proper burial. You might chuckle at that now. What, like some priest is going to fish you out, read your bling, and give you a nice headstone? But back then, that mattered. A lot. You didn't want to wander as a ghost. You didn't want to rot unnamed. You wanted rest. And if a bit of gold in your ear helped your soul find its way to peace, or at least kept you from haunting the docks with other unburied sailors, well, that seemed like a decent trade. Some earrings even contained coins, sealed inside hollow hoops. You could pop them open and bam, there's a tiny stash of emergency silver. If you ever got marooned, captured, or shipwrecked and washed ashore in enemy territory, that little coin might be the difference between escape and execution. Pirates called it ear ransom, and it wasn't just hypothetical. There are recorded cases of shipwreck survivors literally trading their earrings for bread or a ride back to port. But the most chilling and strangely poetic purpose for earrings was what came after death. If your body couldn't be identified by face or uniform, your earring might speak for you. It could tell a friendly town who to write to, or warn enemy navies not to mess with. A body found with the mark of, say, the notorious pirate Calico Jack. You might want to think twice before looting him. There are sea-worn stories of drowned pirates pulled from wrecks with earrings still clinging to bone. One tale from the Cayman Islands speaks of a skeleton found half buried in the sand in the 1700s, a silver hoop still gleaming on its left ear, etched with the words, "Forgive my fire." No one knows who he was, but people still whisper his name like a prayer. And then there's the matter of cursed earrings. Oh yes, you heard that right, cursed. Because pirates being pirates, they dabbled in more than just rum and robbery. They picked up strange things from strange places, especially the ones who sailed near Haiti, Jamaica, or the Yucatan, Voodoo, Obeah, Santeria. The lines between faith, fear, and folklore blurred faster than a squall. It wasn't unheard of for earrings to be blessed by a priestess or hexed by one, a charm to keep away lightning, a mark to confuse sea monsters, a ward against betrayal from your own crew. You once heard old Ben on your ship mutter that he'd never wear another silver stud after the storm of screaming hands. You didn't ask. You didn't want to ask. Historians still argue whether these rituals had any real basis or were just spicy storytelling passed down like bedtime horror tales. But either way, the fear was real. Pirates believed in the power of earrings not just to ward off death, but sometimes to invite it. Which brings us to the shipwrecks. Because for every floating survivor who sold their earring for food, there were others who didn't make it, who sank with their hoops still in, their bones resting among shattered cannon and broken timbers on the ocean floor. And those earrings, they're still down there. Treasure divers off the coast of Florida have found single earrings tangled in coral, still attached to a skull or nestled inside a chest. Some are plain, some have initials, some are so ornate, it's hard to believe they ever belonged to pirates. But they did, and every one of them has a story that never got to finish. There's even a theory among wreck hunters that earrings can lead you to the treasure, not because they're valuable, but because they show where the bodies fell. Follow the dead, find the gold. Whether that's respectful archaeology or just glorified grave robbing is, well, let's just say historians still argue about that too. You lean out over the rail and glance into the depths. It's darker than ink down there. Quiet. You imagine the sea floor cluttered with lost earrings like breadcrumbs left behind by ghosts. Each one a sign of a life lived loudly and lost suddenly. You remember something your quartermaster said during a storm last year. If I go over, leave me, but take my earring. Make sure it goes to my son. And you knew at that moment he didn't care about the gold. He cared that someone, somewhere, would remember his face. You touch your own earring now. It's nothing special. Just a dull brass ring with a nick in the edge where it caught on a crate once. But to you, it's everything. It's a story in your ear, a whisper from the deep, a promise that if the sea ever claims you, you won't go down anonymous. A breeze finally stirs across the deck and the sails creak awake. The sea isn't patient anymore. It's ready. The sun hangs low, brushing the horizon with shades of blood and fire. The salty air thickens, and the ship's timbers groan under the weight of your thoughts. You fiddle with your earring, that familiar little hoop that's been with you through storms, fights, and countless tavern deals. It's more than jewelry. It's a tool, a treasure, a tiny lifeline. You probably think pirates were all about flashy gold and silver, gaudy stuff to show off their plundered riches. But earrings? They were far more practical than that. Imagine this. You're stranded far from port, maybe after a nasty skirmish or a shipwreck. The crew is hungry, desperate. You've no money to buy food or medicine. You could beg, but begging is a death sentence among pirates. Pride runs as deep as the ocean here. So you reach for your earring. Pirate earrings were a form of emergency money, a secret savings account you always carried on you. Gold or silver, compact and valuable. You could trade your earring for food, drink, or even passage on a ship. No questions asked, just a quick flick of your wrist and a flash of metal. You might be thinking, surely losing an earring is losing wealth. But pirates were smart. If your earring was too valuable to lose, you'd wear something simpler every day and save the bling for emergencies. That little hoop wasn't just an accessory, it was your backup plan. One famous pirate, Anne Bonny, was known to keep a stash of earrings hidden beneath her clothes. If caught or stranded, she'd trade them to locals or friendly smugglers. For her, earrings were survival, not vanity, but that's not all. In the chaos of battle or the isolation of the sea, injuries were inevitable. You can't exactly stroll into a hospital when your arm's bleeding from a cutlass wound. That's where earrings played a surprising medical role. Gold is naturally antibacterial. That's right, your shiny hoop wasn't just for looks. Pirates sometimes used their earrings as makeshift sutures. The small, sturdy metal loops could be threaded through torn flesh to hold wounds closed temporarily. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. Imagine a pirate bleeding on the deck, clutching a torn shirt and hoping the pain doesn't send him overboard. The ship's medic, or whoever was sober enough, would twist the earring through the wound edges, keeping them together until they could reach help. It was crude surgery with a pirate's flair for improvisation. Historians still argue whether this was a common practice or just a rare trick pulled by desperate sailors. Either way, the fact that pirates carried metal hoops meant they had options. Not just bling, but tools. There's also evidence earrings were used as needles for tattooing. Pirates loved tattoos. They were badges of honor, maps of their journeys inked in skin. The same earring used to patch a wound could also prick the skin to mark a new symbol of loyalty or conquest. The dual use of earrings as both currency and medicine makes you rethink that just for fashion story, huh? And let's not forget debt. Pirate economies were surprisingly complex. You owed your share to the ship's cook, the quartermaster, maybe the captain. When the coin was tight, you could pawn your earring as a promise to repay later. Some pirate ports even recognized specific earring types as credit tokens, like IOUs, but shinier. If you showed up at a tavern with a certain earring style, you'd get a drink or meal in the house, and the owner would trust you'd settle up after the next raid. It was a social contract, unspoken but fierce. One quirky tale tells of a pirate nicknamed One Ear Wilcox, who lost one of his earrings during a fight. Instead of replacing it immediately, he used the missing earring as a bargaining chip, trading the story of how he lost it for meals and favors in port towns. His tale grew, and with it, his legend. So earrings became stories, currency, tools, and symbols all at once. But what about those who couldn't afford gold or silver earrings? Surely not every pirate had the luxury. Here's where things get even more interesting. Many pirates fashioned earrings from whatever they could find: bone, wood, iron, even bits of glass. These makeshift earrings carried less monetary value, but held immense personal value. They could represent a memory, a promise, or even a secret message. In fact, some pirates used earrings as secret codes. The materials, shapes, or even how many earrings they wore signaled information to trusted crewmates, warnings about nearby enemies, plans for mutiny, or signals for rendezvous points. One famous mutiny on the ship, Revenge, supposedly began when a captain noticed his second-in-command earring had changed from a simple iron hoop to a carved bone piece overnight. It was a silent challenge, one that led to a bloody confrontation. Pirates thrived in a world where words could betray you, but symbols, like earrings, spoke loudly and safely. Your own earring, now dull and worn from years at sea, carries the weight of all this history. It's more than a piece of metal. It's a talisman, a savings bank, a first aid kit, a secret signal, and a badge of survival. You slide it out, examining the tiny scratches and dents, each one a chapter of your story. Suddenly, a shout from the crow's nest snaps you back. A storm is brewing. The sea's dark face twists, and the wind tears through the rigging like a living thing. You secure your earring back on, tuck it beneath your hair, and prepare for whatever comes next. Because on the open ocean, every little advantage counts. Even a tiny hoop of metal can mean the difference between life and death. The sea air bites cool against your skin as you pace the deck, your fingers brushing absent-mindedly over the earring nestled in your ear. That small, gleaming hoop isn't just metal. It's your signature in a world where words are cheap and trust is cheaper. In the chaotic world of pirates, earrings were more than decoration. They were badges of identity, rebellious declarations, and silent codes that told the crew who you really were. You probably picture pirates as a ragtag bunch of thieves who threw on any old clothes and called it a day. But pirate crews had their own rules, hierarchies, and subtle ways to claim status. And earrings? They often spoke louder than a captain's orders. First, let's talk about rank. Not every pirate wore earrings, but those who did often did so to mark their place on the ship's social ladder. The captain might sport a heavy gold hoop, or several, gleaming and ornate, marking him out as the leader, the one with the final say and the biggest share of loot. The quartermaster, second only to the captain, might wear a slightly less flashy earring, but still something to say, "I'm important here." Some crews even had secret earring codes to show rank, like one earring for a normal crew member, 2 for officers, and a full set for the captain. Of course, these codes weren't universal. Every ship was its own world, but among pirate circles they mattered. Imagine walking into a port town trying to bluff your way past guards. Your earrings could be your secret handshake, a way to prove you belonged without speaking a word. But earrings weren't just about rank. There were also rebellions. Pirates prided themselves on rejecting the rigid social orders that ruled the land. The gold-plated earring, the kind worn by nobles on land, was transformed on pirate ships into a symbol of freedom and defiance. Wearing a single hoop in one ear, sometimes pierced in unusual spots like the upper cartilage or even the nose, signaled that you didn't belong to any king or law, but answered only to the code of the sea and your crew. In some cases, pirates who had once been sailors in navy fleets or merchant ships adopted earrings as a visible rejection of their past lives. They tore away their old identities, traded uniforms for rags, and let their jewelry tell the story of who they had become. And it wasn't always gold or silver. Some pirates crafted earrings from bone, shark teeth, or carved wood, wild, earthy materials that screamed, "I'm one with the ocean and its untamed spirit." Historians still argue whether these earrings truly marked social rank or were more personal choices, influenced by superstition, fashion, or necessity. But one thing's clear. For pirates, earrings carried meanings that only the initiated could fully read. You run your thumb over the earring again and think of the stories you've heard from old sea dogs about how the shape and style could say everything about a pirate's background and loyalty. For example, a hoop earring on the left ear often indicated the wearer was a sailor or pirate, while a stud or ring on the right ear could mean the person had crossed the Atlantic or completed a particular voyage. Some pirates even wore earrings in both ears, declaring their readiness to sail in dangerous waters or their willingness to fight to the death. Your own earring is simple, a small battered hoop, but it's enough to show you're part of this world, a world where identity is fluid, but survival depends on clear signals. And sometimes earrings marked out the rebels, the mutineers and outcasts who refused to play by the rules even among pirates. Mutiny was a constant threat on pirate ships. The crew was often more powerful than the captain, and when a leader lost their respect or failed to deliver, the men would act swiftly. In these tense moments, earrings could serve as secret signs of allegiance or betrayal. A pirate who wanted to start a mutiny might switch their usual earring for one made from an unusual material, like a carved bone or a distinctive color, signaling to other conspirators without alerting the captain. One famous mutiny on the ship. The Whydah reportedly began when a group of pirates noticed their leader's earring had changed overnight, a small but significant sign that rebellion was afoot. The symbolism of earrings extended beyond rank and rebellion to belonging. Pirate crews were often a mix of nationalities, backgrounds, and even races. The earring, in this melting pot, became a unifying emblem, a way to show membership in the dangerous but tight-knit brotherhood of the sea. Wearing the same style of earring, or sharing matching ones among crewmates, helped forge bonds. It was like saying, "We're in this together, come what may." Some pirate gangs even gave earrings as gifts, a sign of trust and loyalty. Losing your earring wasn't just losing metal, it was like losing your place in the family. One curious tidbit is that some pirates believed that if a crew member lost their earring during battle or rough seas, it was a bad omen for the entire ship. Others took the lost earring and turned it into a keepsake or a token of remembrance for fallen comrades. There are tales of pirate widows who kept their husbands' earrings safe, wearing them as a reminder of love lost to the sea. and stories of young sailors who pierced their ears for the first time on a pirate ship, marking their passage from boy to man. These earrings, humble or grand, were the threads that wove together stories of identity, belonging, and rebellion. Of course, not everyone agreed on what earrings meant. Some naval officers viewed pirate earrings as nothing more than worthless baubles, fashion accessories for thieves. But pirates knew better. Every ring, stud, or loop had a story, a meaning that went deeper than mere metal. Historians still argue whether earrings were widely used as rank markers, or if that's a romanticized idea fueled by movies and legends. But the evidence of earrings as powerful symbols of identity is undeniable. As the ship creaks and sways beneath your feet, you realize that your earring is your declaration. I belong to this ship, this crew, this life. I'm part of something wild, free, and dangerous. You touch the earring one last time before climbing into your hammock. The night air hums softly, and somewhere distant, a sea shanty drifts through the air. You smile. It's not just metal in your ear, it's your story, your flag, your voice. The salty breeze whispers secrets as you lean over the ship's railing, watching the endless, restless waves chase each other under the moonlight. Your earring catches the dim glow, a tiny flicker of silver against the night. To you, it's a simple hoop, but to the pirates of old, that small piece of metal was a shield against unseen terrors, an ancient charm steeped in superstition as thick as the fog rolling off the ocean. Pirates were notorious for believing in all sorts of superstitions, and earrings were no exception. More than just tools or status symbols, earrings were powerful talismans that they believed could protect them from curses, evil spirits, and even the fearsome grip of drowning. You probably think superstitions are silly tales told by sailors to pass the time. But for pirates, whose lives teetered daily between death and survival, these beliefs were serious business, woven tightly into their identities and practices. One of the most common superstitions was that earrings warded off bad luck at sea. Pirates believed that wearing a gold or silver hoop would keep them safe from the wrath of sea gods and malevolent spirits that haunted the deep. Gold was especially prized, not just for its value, but for its magical properties. It was thought to be incorruptible, a metal that could never rust or decay, which made it the perfect material to guard against evil. Some pirates even believed that the shine of gold earrings could blind or confuse malevolent spirits, making them less likely to cause harm. Imagine a ghostly hand reaching out from the depths, only to recoil in confusion at the gleam of your earring. It's a little spooky, but it gave sailors comfort. A fringe belief, held by some pirate crews, was that earrings could protect the wearer from drowning. This wasn't just poetic wishful thinking. The logic was practical too. Because earrings were valuable and easy to trade, they could be used as ransom or payment if a pirate was captured or stranded after a shipwreck. So the earring was a life insurance policy of sorts. But the superstitions ran deeper. Pirates believed that if a sailor died at sea without wearing an earring, their soul might be cursed to wander the ocean forever, trapped in limbo. The earring, then, was a kind of spiritual passport, helping the dead cross over and preventing restless ghosts from haunting the ship. Some pirates took this belief so seriously they insisted on piercing even the youngest crew members' ears before their first voyage. This rite of passage wasn't just about tradition, it was about survival beyond death. Historians still argue whether these spiritual beliefs were widespread or mostly isolated to specific pirate crews. But the stories that survive speak to the deep human need for protection and meaning in a world full of danger. Another superstition involved the type of earring worn. Some pirates believed that wearing a single gold hoop in the left ear would help them hear the call of mermaids, creatures said to lure sailors to their doom. The earring acted like a filter, protecting the wearer's mind from seductive songs. Others thought that silver earrings could ward off vampires or other dark creatures rumored to stalk the coasts and islands pirates frequented. Whether or not pirates truly believed in vampires, the idea that earrings could guard against supernatural threats highlights how these simple adornments carried layers of meaning beyond fashion. Then there's the curious belief about earrings and eyesight. Pirates often squinted against the harsh glare of sun and sea spray, and some believed that wearing an earring on a particular ear could improve vision or protect against eye infections, common hazards on long voyages. One tale tells of a pirate captain who swore that after donning a silver hoop in his right ear, he could spot enemy ships from much farther away. Whether it was placebo or luck, his crew followed suit, hoping for the same advantage. And speaking of luck, earrings were seen as charms to attract fortune and success in battle or plunder. Pirates were gamblers by nature, betting on everything from dice games and smoky taverns to the odds of outrunning a naval ship. An earring could be a lucky charm, something to clutch or touch before a fight or raid. One story describes a pirate who wore 7 earrings, each said to represent a successful raid. Before battle, he would touch each earring in turn, whispering a prayer or a curse depending on his mood. Sometimes those prayers seemed to work, at least until the next battle when luck inevitably ran dry. The line between superstition and practical psychology is blurry here. Holding onto a lucky earring might have calmed nerves or boosted confidence. In a world ruled by chance and danger, any edge was worth clutching. There's also the darker side of earring superstitions. Some pirates believed that if you lost an earring at sea, it was a sign of bad luck or even an omen of death. Losing an earring wasn't just a loss of wealth, it was a crack in your protective armor. This belief made pirates extra careful with their earrings, securing them tightly and sometimes wearing multiple pieces as backup. The fear of curses linked to earrings even extended to enemies. Pirates believed that rival crews might place curses on their earrings or steal them to bring misfortune. This led to secret practices like burying or hiding earrings when docked in foreign ports, or wearing earrings beneath cloth to avoid detection. In some cases, pirates exchanged earrings as peace offerings or tokens to lift curses, turning their jewelry into powerful symbols of trust and reconciliation. One of the quirkiest legends you might hear is that some pirates dipped their earrings in seawater during a full moon to charge them with protective power. This ritual, mixing superstition with the natural world, shows how deeply connected pirates felt to the sea, not just as a place to steal and fight, but as a mystical force to respect and appease. Whether it was a practical tool, a badge of identity, or a magical charm, your earring carries centuries of superstition. You trace the tiny hoop and think about how many sailors before you trusted it to keep them safe from curses, storms, and the unknown. Even today, the sparkle of a pirate's earring seems to shimmer with stories, legends, and whispers from the deep. As the night darkens and the stars wink overhead, you tuck your earring close, feeling the invisible weight of protection it promises. Because when you're sailing the unpredictable seas, you never know what ghost or god might be watching. The horizon stretches endlessly in all directions, and your ship rocks gently beneath your feet. The ocean is quiet, too quiet maybe, and that eerie calm makes your fingers instinctively reach up to your ear. There it is, your earring, warm from the sun, heavier than it looks, and glinting with potential. Not just decoration, not just protection from ghosts or curses. This little ring of gold could be your lifeline, your last bargaining chip, your golden parachute, if only parachutes existed in the 17th century. See, back then, pirates didn't just wear earrings to look intimidating or fashionable. They wore them because they were practical treasures, portable wealth. Pirates didn't have bank accounts. Their gold, silver, and jewels were often literally on their bodies. That gold earring you're toying with? It might be worth more than everything else you own. Let's face it, being a pirate was not a long-term career plan. Your retirement package, a quick death and a shallow grave, if you were lucky. So every pirate needed a plan for when things went wrong. And that's where the earring came in. Gold earrings were like an emergency stash of cash tucked into your earlobe. Picture this. You're shipwrecked on some hostile island. Your weapons are lost, your boots are waterlogged, and your beard smells like fish guts. But there, gleaming in your ear, is your salvation. A piece of gold that can buy you food, protection, or maybe passage home, or at least a bottle of rum and a place to sleep that doesn't smell like bilge water. And it wasn't just about shipwrecks. If a pirate was captured and thrown in jail, or worse, sold into slavery, having gold or silver on your body could mean the difference between freedom and a lifetime chained to an oar. Many pirates wore earrings not only for style, but because they might one day bribe a guard, pay for a fake identity, or convince a shady magistrate to lose their paperwork. You could say it was like carrying your wallet on your face, except much more painful if someone tried to steal it. In fact, pirates were often careful about the size and weight of their earrings, not just for comfort, but for value. A well-made gold hoop was easy to measure and trade. It wasn't just jewelry, it was currency. Historians still argue whether pirates standardized the value of their earrings or if every piece was unique. Some scholars say that certain pirate crews actually set rules about the minimum value of earrings worn by their members, like a dress code, but for survival. The logic was brutal. If you died, your earring might pay for your burial. If you lived, it might keep you alive. That brings us to one of the most morbid and oddly practical traditions, the funeral fund earring. It was widely believed among seafarers, not just pirates, that if your body washed ashore and someone found you, your gold earring would be used to pay for a proper burial. That's why many pirates had their names, hometowns, or symbols etched into their earrings. It was like dog tags before dog tags. Your earring was a message. I'm not just some nameless corpse. Use this to send me off, right? Some even wore earrings engraved with religious phrases or symbols, hoping they might sway a priest to bless their remains, or at least not dump them in a ditch. And in a few grim cases, pirates left instructions to their crews. If I die, sell my earring and buy a cask of rum to remember me by. Because even in death, pirates had style, but not all pirates waited until death to cash in their earrings. Let's say you're in a Caribbean port, low on coin and surrounded by temptation. Dice games, palm readers, warm bread, and warmer company. You lost your share of the last plunder in a card game gone wrong, and now your only asset is dangling from your lobe. So you haggle with a local trader who knows exactly how desperate you are. He offers you a fifth of what the gold's worth, but it's better than starving. You hand over the earring, your hand shaking just a little. In return, a pouch of coin, a meal, and maybe, if luck holds, a ticket on the next outgoing ship. The earring was wealth in the purest sense. Easily concealed, easily traded, and instantly valuable almost anywhere pirates roamed. You didn't need to find a buyer for a whole chest of doubloons. You just needed someone willing to take a little gold off your hands. And in times of peace or boredom between raids, some pirates even gambled their earrings. In games of chance, a hoop could be wagered like a coin. If you won, great. Maybe you'd walk away with a matching pair. If you lost, well, you'd better hope your crewmates didn't tease you too hard for your lopsided look. One fringe detail that always raises eyebrows. Some pirates wore earrings made from a mix of gold and local materials, like coral or volcanic rock, so that the earring wouldn't be worth stealing unless you knew how to melt it down and purify it. Clever or paranoid? Maybe both. And don't think pirates were above using their earrings as collateral. Need a new pistol? Leave your earring with the blacksmith? Need a temporary ally in a shady deal? Offer your earring as a sign of trust, or at least as insurance. There's even a tale, possibly apocryphal, but too juicy to ignore, about a pirate who once proposed marriage by offering his gold earring instead of a ring. The recipient, legend has it, melted it down and used it to buy a tavern. Romantic? Debatable? Profitable? Definitely. So you see, your little earring was a lot of things. Superstition, symbol, survival strategy. In the unpredictable world of piracy, where today's treasure could become tomorrow's shipwreck, it pays to keep your wealth close, really close, like pierced into your flesh close. And yet, some pirates took it even further. Rumors swirled of men who hid hollow earrings, filled with crushed jewels or tiny rolled-up maps, tiny safes worn in plain sight. Whether these stories are true or not, they paint a picture of pirates as survivors, always thinking one step ahead, ready to vanish, with nothing but the gold in their ears. Historians still argue whether the average pirate really relied so heavily on earrings for wealth, or if this was a custom mainly among the more clever or cautious sailors. But enough first-hand accounts survive to make one thing clear. Earrings weren't just fashion. They were finance. So tonight, as your ship cuts quietly through the waves and the stars glitter above, you lie back and rest your head against the ropes. You feel the weight of your earring press softly into your cheek. It's not heavy, not really, but it carries the weight of 100 lives before yours, lives that counted on a single ring of gold to save them. And maybe, just maybe, one day it'll save you too. The waves slap lazily against the hull as you sit cross-legged on the deck, fiddling with a needle warmed by the firelight of a smoky lantern. You're sweating, partly from the Caribbean heat, partly from what's about to happen. A rough hand clamps your shoulder, and a pirate with half his teeth grind down at you. "Ready to become one of us?" he growls. You nod, trying not to show the nerves chewing through your stomach. He brandishes a thick sewing needle, the kind used to repair sails, and a chunk of cork. No numbing cream, no sterilization, no anesthesia. Welcome to pirate ear piercing, the old-fashioned way. Long before health regulations, piercing guns, or sterile gloves, pirates relied on grit, guts, and a little too much rum. Piercing an ear wasn't a cosmetic decision, it was a rite of passage. It hurt, it bled, it got infected. And yet, every pirate went through it like a badge of honor. You already know by now that earrings were part identity, part protection, and part pocket-sized treasure. But how did they get those earrings in the first place? Let's talk about the moment the hole gets made. The process was simple, but not exactly pleasant. First, you'd find someone on board who was known to have a steady hand. This person was not a trained piercer, of course. He was probably just the guy who once did it successfully without killing anyone. He'd tell you to sit still and hold your breath. Some used a sail needle. Some used an awl. Others preferred a sharpened fishbone or sliver of whalebone filed to a fine point. The pirate in charge of piercing might heat the tool in a fire, muttering something about killing the bad spirits, or more realistically, just hoping to kill a few germs. Historians still argue whether pirates truly understood the risks of infection, but the use of heated tools or burning cloth suggests they had some folk knowledge of basic hygiene. Or maybe they just liked the sizzle. The target was the soft, fleshy part of the earlobe, favored by helmsmen, linked to calm seas and clear skies. Green, luck and life. Black, death. Most pirates didn't mind mixing their metaphors, so it wasn't unusual to see a man with a hoop of silver and a black pearl tied to it, as if daring death to come find him. Quirky detail. Some pirates actually carried tiny scrolls inside hollow gold earrings. These scrolls might contain a map coordinate, a family name, or a blessing in Latin. Kind of like an ancient USB drive dangling from your earlobe. Historians still argue whether earrings were used as secret communication tools between pirate crews. One theory suggests that certain combinations, say a copper hoop with a tiny white bead, meant loyal to Blackbeard or friendly to Nassau crews. There's no hard proof, but it does explain some of the weirder combinations that keep popping up in wreckage findings. And speaking of rank, it wasn't uncommon for captains to mandate specific earrings for officers. On one notorious brig called the Night Wasp, the captain required his top men to wear 3 identical rings in the left ear and nothing in the right. Why? He said it kept them balanced. More likely, it just made them easier to spot in the chaos of battle. You see your ship's boatswain now, polishing what appears to be an earring shaped like a dragon's claw. He says it's carved from walrus ivory, which is impressive, since you're not even sure what a walrus looks like. He claims it protects against mutiny. You're not sure it works. He was nearly stabbed just last week. But hey, superstition is a strong thing on the high seas. Of course, some earrings told stories. You once met a one-eyed sailor who wore a tiny coin in his earlobe, a Portuguese cruzado, bent into a curve and drilled with a hole. He said he pulled it from the mouth of a drowned nobleman. He didn't need it, the sailor grinned. That coin had seen battle, blood, and betrayal. And now it hung from his ear, whispering stories you couldn't hear. Some pirates even kept mementos in their earrings. A piece of sailcloth from a lost ship, a shard of a lover's mirror. One man you knew had a braid of his daughter's hair twisted into gold wire, always brushing against his cheek like a ghost's touch. Tough as he was, he wept whenever he cleaned it. Let's not forget, too, that wealth was never guaranteed to pirates. You could be rich one week and dead the next. That's why earrings doubled as portable, wearable savings accounts. A good gold earring could be melted down, traded, or ransomed. In a world with no banks and no pockets, your ears were as good a vault as any. But with that wealth came risk. Earrings marked you as a pirate, even when you weren't flying the black flag. Some pirates tried to pass as merchants on land, but their glittering ears gave them away. In some towns, authorities cut off the ears of suspected pirates as proof of justice. Other times, rival crews did it as a warning. You cross us, you lose more than your loot. That's why some pirates wore mismatched earrings. One gold, one wood, one gem, one bone. Confusing, personal, and harder to trace. Like carrying false papers, but shinier. You're getting an itch now. Maybe your own earring feels too plain. You start wondering what kind of flair you'd add. A shark tooth? A tiny vial of seawater? Or maybe that polished black stone you found on the beach last month? But before you change anything, you look around and take stock of the crew. The first mate, with his flawless sapphire stud, rumor says he won it in a drinking contest with a voodoo priestess. The cook, with a forked earring that looks suspiciously like it used to belong to a rich diner. The cabin boy, whose shell earring clicks softly when he moves because he filed it himself. Each one of these people tells a story without speaking, and suddenly you realize the ship itself is like a gallery of ears, each one whispering secrets in gold, silver, and stone. As the ship creaks and turns toward the open sea, a seabird circles overhead and lets out a long, screechy cry. You smile. You get it now. Earrings aren't about decoration. They're declarations. Declarations of survival. Declarations of rebellion. Declarations that no matter what the world throws at you, storm, sword, hangman's noose, you've still got a little glint of treasure swinging next to your brain, catching the light and daring the wind. You lean on the rail of your ship now, watching the sunset melt into the sea like orange ink in blue water. It's been a long day of sailing, repairing lines, and arguing over the last jar of rum. But what really has your thoughts circling tonight is a conversation you overheard below deck, something that Carpenter muttered about earrings buying your way into heaven. You'd laughed it off at the time. Pirates in heaven? Sounds like a mismatch. But now, as the waves slap gently against the hull and the wind dies down into a whisper, it lingers in your head. Why do pirates wear earrings when they know they might die tomorrow? Sure, some of it's fashion, some of it's status, and some of it, let's be honest, is just because pirates love shiny things. But tonight, you begin to understand that the meaning goes even deeper. To pirates, earrings weren't just trinkets. They were lifelines, insurance policies, little golden promises to the gods, to the sea, and even to strangers who might find your corpse washed ashore. Let's take it one idea at a time, starting with the most common belief: burial money. Gold hoops, especially thick ones, weren't just treasure. They were prepayment for a decent burial. Pirates knew better than anyone that death could be sudden, messy, and lonely. If your ship went down in a storm, if you fell in battle, or if the Navy caught up with you, chances were good you'd end up floating face down somewhere. Not exactly a dignified exit, so they wore their funeral funds. One hoop, clean and pure gold, could cover a basic Christian burial in most ports. At the very least, it was enough to bribe a priest, a gravedigger, or even just a curious bystander to give you a shove beneath the sand. That gold earring said, "Hey, I know I'm dead, but at least I paid my dues. Don't leave me for the seagulls." It was a practical solution for people who rarely had families, legal documents, or homes to return to. Your body might be lost at sea, but your earring might just convince someone to give your bones a little peace. In fact, some earrings were engraved with details for that exact reason: name, ship, port of origin, or even the eerie phrase, "Bury me here." It's like wearing a dog tag, if that tag were made from Spanish treasure and looped through your earlobe. Historians still argue whether this burial idea was truly widespread or just a romantic notion added later by storytellers. Some records show that sailors, not just pirates, held this belief across Europe. Others argue there's little real proof anyone actually got buried thanks to a gold hoop. But it's hard to ignore the sheer number of skeletons pulled from wrecks with earrings still dangling in place. Of course, not all earrings were financial. Some were spiritual. Across the Caribbean and Africa, sailors picked up all kinds of folk beliefs. One that stuck especially deep: the idea that metal near the head could protect the soul. Gold was pure, untainted by rust, and some believed it channeled energy, kind of like a lightning rod, but for curses. A sailor once told you that the earring in his left ear keeps the devil from whispering too loud. He said that without it, he dreamt of drowning every night. With it, the dreams stopped. Placebo? Maybe. But try telling that to a man who sails into typhoons and stabs sharks for fun. If he believes an earring protects him, you let him believe. Some pirates even had their earrings blessed by a priest, a witch, or something in between. In Haiti, it wasn't uncommon for sailors to consult voodoo priestesses before a long voyage. The priestess might touch the earring with sacred herbs, chant into it, or even tie a tiny talisman to it. A feather, a bone sliver, a charm made from folded palm leaves. In those cases, the earring wasn't just gold. It was an amulet, a wearable prayer. One quirky case you remember. A Scottish pirate who wore a tiny glass vial as his earring. Inside it, a scrap of tartan from his mother's dress, sealed with wax. He swore it kept him from getting lost, even when the stars disappeared. "It's my land and my ear," he said, tapping it gently. "So I always know where I came from." Others wore bones. Yes, actual bones. Often tiny pieces from animals, sometimes human teeth. One earring you saw had a monkey knuckle carved into the shape of a serpent. Another had a baby tooth, bleached white by years of salt. Creepy? Absolutely. Favored by helmsmen, linked to calm seas and clear skies. Green? Luck and life. Black? Death. Most pirates didn't mind mixing their metaphors, so it wasn't unusual to see a man with a hoop of silver and a black pearl tied to it, as if daring death to come find him. Quirky detail. Some pirates actually carried tiny scrolls inside hollow gold earrings. These scrolls might contain a map coordinate, a family name, or a blessing in Latin. Kind of like an ancient USB drive dangling from your earlobe. Historians still argue whether earrings were used as secret communication tools between pirate crews. One theory suggests that certain combinations, say a copper hoop with a tiny white bead, meant loyal to Blackbeard or friendly to Nassau crews. There's no hard proof, but it does explain some of the weirder combinations that keep popping up in wreckage findings. And speaking of rank, it wasn't uncommon for captains to mandate specific earrings for officers. On one notorious brig called the Night Wasp, the captain required his top men to wear 3 identical rings in the left ear and nothing in the right. Why? He said it kept them balanced. More likely, it just made them easier to spot in the chaos of battle. You see your ship's boatswain now, polishing what appears to be an earring shaped like a dragon's claw. He says it's carved from walrus ivory, which is impressive, since you're not even sure what a walrus looks like. He claims it protects against mutiny. You're not sure it works. He was nearly stabbed just last week. But hey, superstition is a strong thing on the high seas. Of course, some earrings told stories. You once met a one-eyed sailor who wore a tiny coin in his earlobe, a Portuguese cruzado, bent into a curve and drilled with a hole. He said he pulled it from the mouth of a drowned nobleman. He didn't need it, the sailor grinned. That coin had seen battle, blood, and betrayal. And now it hung from his ear, whispering stories you couldn't hear. Some pirates even kept mementos in their earrings. A piece of sailcloth from a lost ship, a shard of a lover's mirror. One man you knew had a braid of his daughter's hair twisted into gold wire, always brushing against his cheek like a ghost's touch. Tough as he was, he wept whenever he cleaned it. Let's not forget, too, that wealth was never guaranteed to pirates. You could be rich one week and dead the next. That's why earrings doubled as portable, wearable savings accounts. A good gold earring could be melted down, traded, or ransomed. In a world with no banks and no pockets, your ears were as good a vault as any. But with that wealth came risk. Earrings marked you as a pirate, even when you weren't flying the black flag. Some pirates tried to pass as merchants on land, but their glittering ears gave them away. In some towns, authorities cut off the ears of suspected pirates as proof of justice. Other times, rival crews did it as a warning. You cross us, you lose more than your loot. That's why some pirates wore mismatched earrings. One gold, one wood, one gem, one bone. Confusing, personal, and harder to trace, like carrying false papers, but shinier. You're getting an itch now. Maybe your own earring feels too plain. You start wondering what kind of flair you'd add. A shark tooth? A tiny vial of seawater? Or maybe that polished black stone you found on the beach last month? But before you change anything, you look around and take stock of the crew. The first mate, with his flawless sapphire stud, rumor says he won it in a drinking contest with a voodoo priestess. The cook, with a forked earring that looks suspiciously like it used to belong to a rich diner. The cabin boy, whose shell earring clicks softly when he moves, because he filed it himself. Each one of these people tells a story without speaking, and suddenly you realize the ship itself is like a gallery of ears, each one whispering secrets in gold, silver, and stone. As the ship creaks and turns toward the open sea, a seabird circles overhead and lets out a long, screechy cry. You smile. You get it now. Earrings aren't about decoration. They're declarations. Declarations of survival. Declarations of rebellion. Declarations that no matter what the world throws at you, storm, sword, hangman's noose, you've still got a little glint of treasure swinging next to your brain, catching the light and daring the wind. You lean on the rail of your ship now, watching the sunset melt into the sea like orange ink in blue water. It's been a long day of sailing, repairing lines, and arguing over the last jar of rum. But what really has your thoughts circling tonight is a conversation you overheard below deck, something that Carpenter muttered about earrings buying your way into heaven. You'd laughed it off at the time. Pirates in heaven? Sounds like a mismatch. But now, as the waves slap gently against the hull and the wind dies down into a whisper, it lingers in your head. Why do pirates wear earrings when they know they might die tomorrow? Sure, some of it's fashion, some of it's status, and some of it, let's be honest, is just because pirates love shiny things. But tonight, you begin to understand that the meaning goes even deeper. To pirates, earrings weren't just trinkets. They were lifelines, insurance policies, little golden promises to the gods, to the sea, and even to strangers who might find your corpse washed ashore. Let's take it one idea at a time, starting with the most common belief: burial money. Gold hoops, especially thick ones, weren't just treasure. They were prepayment for a decent burial. Pirates knew better than anyone that death could be sudden, messy, and lonely. If your ship went down in a storm, if you fell in battle, or if the Navy caught up with you, chances were good you'd end up floating face down somewhere. Not exactly a dignified exit, so they wore their funeral funds. One hoop, clean and pure gold, could cover a basic Christian burial in most ports. At the very least, it was enough to bribe a priest, a gravedigger, or even just a curious bystander to give you a shove beneath the sand. That gold earring said, "Hey, I know I'm dead, but at least I paid my dues. Don't leave me for the seagulls." It was a practical solution for people who rarely had families, legal documents, or homes to return to. Your body might be lost at sea, but your earring might just convince someone to give your bones a little peace. In fact, some earrings were engraved with details for that exact reason: name, ship, port of origin, or even the eerie phrase, "bury me here." It's like wearing a dog tag, if that tag were made from Spanish treasure and looped through your earlobe. Historians still argue whether this burial idea was truly widespread or just a romantic notion added later by storytellers. Some records show that sailors, not just pirates, held this belief across Europe. Others argue there's little real proof anyone actually got buried thanks to a gold hoop. But it's hard to ignore the sheer number of skeletons pulled from wrecks with earrings still dangling in place. Of course, not all earrings were financial. Some were spiritual. Across the Caribbean and Africa, sailors picked up all kinds of folk beliefs. One that stuck especially deep, the idea that metal near the head could protect the soul. Gold was pure, untainted by rust, and some believed it channeled energy, kind of like a lightning rod, but for curses. A sailor once told you that the earring in his left ear keeps the devil from whispering too loud. He said that without it, he dreamt of drowning every night. With it, the dreams stopped. Placebo? Maybe. But try telling that to a man who sails into typhoons and stabs sharks for fun. If he believes an earring protects him, you let him believe. Some pirates even had their earrings blessed by a priest, a witch, or something in between. In Haiti, it wasn't uncommon for sailors to consult voodoo priestesses before a long voyage. The priestess might touch the earring with sacred herbs, chant into it, or even tie a tiny talisman to it, a feather, a bone sliver, a charm made from folded palm leaves. In those cases, the earring wasn't just gold. It was an amulet, a wearable prayer. One quirky case you remember, a Scottish pirate who wore a tiny glass vial as his earring. Inside it, a scrap of tartan from his mother's dress, sealed with wax. He swore it kept him from getting lost even when the stars disappeared. "It's my land in my ear," he said, tapping it gently, "so I always know where I came from." Others wore bones. Yes, actual bones, often tiny pieces from animals, sometimes human teeth. One earring you saw had a monkey knuckle carved into the shape of a serpent. Another had a baby tooth, bleached white by years of salt. Creepy? Absolutely. But again, it wasn't about looks. Pirates believed bones carried memory, protection, even power. Then there's the survival angle. An earring might be your only asset if everything else is gone. Let's say you're shipwrecked. Your boots are waterlogged, your pockets are empty, and your crewmates are scattered like driftwood. But, your earring is still there. You can trade it for food, bribe a guard, or melt it down into bullets if things get really desperate. Even in prison, some pirates manage to smuggle messages or coins hidden in hollow earrings. One tale tells of a captured pirate in Port Royal who slipped a bribe to his jailer by unscrewing his earring and offering it as a gift. The jailer took it, opened it later, and found not just a coin, but a tiny map drawn on linen. The pirate escaped the next day. Coincidence? Maybe. Clever? Absolutely. But not all earrings were hopeful. Some were reminders. You once met an old sailor with no ship, no teeth, and only one eye. But his earring was a ring of rusted iron, heavy, ugly, and obviously painful. He said he wore it to remember the slave ship he escaped from as a boy. "Every day it bleeds a little," he told you. "But it means I will never forget." It's not the only example. Some pirates wore earrings made from the weapons that nearly killed them, like a splinter of a musket ball, or a twist of the dagger that left their scar. Others wore the wedding bands of people they'd outlived, stolen, or simply couldn't forget. Every pirate carries ghosts. Some just hang them from their ears. The line between fashion and faith blurs again when you think of the sailors who pierced their ears in specific rituals. In some West African traditions, piercing the left ear was thought to invite good luck, while the right was reserved for warriors. Some pirates kept these traditions, modifying them with new meanings along the way. One common practice: if a man survived a shipwreck, he pierced the opposite ear as a sign of rebirth, like hitting reset on your karma. You'd see a man with twin gold hoops and know he's dead once already, and somehow came back. You think back now to your first piercing. It was crude. You and the quartermaster used a hot knife and a chunk of dried mango for courage. It hurt like hell, and you nearly fainted from the sting, but when it was done, you felt different. Not just because of the pain, because suddenly you belonged. You were one of them, a sailor, a rogue, a marked man in a world where marks mattered. You reach up now, touching that little hoop. It's still there, a little tarnished, a little loose, but it's yours. And now as the stars come out over the water and the deck grows quiet except for the creak of rope and the faint whistle of wind, you understand something new. Your earring is more than decoration, more than currency, more than armor against bad luck. It's a story, your story, and it will speak for you long after your voice is gone. The wind's calm to a whisper now. The moon hangs fat and white, like an eye watching over the sleeping sea. The ship creaks and shifts under your feet, but everything else is still, except your mind. You're still thinking about that little loop of metal in your ear. Funny, isn't it? Hundreds of years later, and people are still wearing earrings for reasons that reach far beyond just looking good. You see it in modern sailors and musicians, and teenagers giving their parents migraines, and yes, even in Hollywood pirates, who strut across your screen with smudged eyeliner and more jewelry than sense. It all loops back, pun intended, to that same pirate tradition. Because here's the thing, pirate earrings never really disappeared. They just changed shape. Take Jack Sparrow, the coal-eyed, swaggering, rum-loving rascal who somehow turned being a pirate into an international fashion trend. He wears beads, bones, and of course earrings, multiple, different metals, different sizes. It's not just a look, it's a story written in accessories. And like most pirate stories, it blends real traditions with over-the-top style. You'd be surprised how much of Jack Sparrow's aesthetic actually has a foundation in real history. Pirates really did decorate themselves like walking treasure chests. They believed in symbolism, superstition, and standing out. Some scholars argue that pirates used their outrageous looks, earrings included, to create a kind of reverse uniform, a don't mess with me visual warning. Hollywood ran with that idea, giving us pirates with dreadlocks, jangling jewelry and eyeliner thick enough to write your will on. But beyond the theatrics, there's still truth in the legacy. Pirates wore earrings to say, this is who I am, and I don't care what you think about it. Sound familiar? That rebellious spirit lives on today, far from the Caribbean seas. You see it in punk culture, where earrings, especially mismatched ones, are still used as a kind of armor. Or in queer identity spaces, where for decades, a single earring in the right or left ear signaled something unspoken. Codes that outsiders missed, but insiders understood instantly. Even the classic bad boy look, leather jacket, torn jeans, gold hoop, is a distant echo of pirate swagger, the outsider, the rogue, the untamed force. Whether you're hanging out behind a 7-Eleven or sailing into Spanish waters with a cutlass in your teeth, that earring says the same thing. I break rules, not bones, unless I have to. And let's talk about music. From David Bowie to Tupac, from Madonna to Harry Styles, artists have used earrings as identity markers, sometimes flamboyant, sometimes subtle, sometimes gold, sometimes a dangling cross or a silver spike. It's all a continuation of that ancient practice, using your ear to tell a story about your soul. One quirky fact: in the 1980s, there was a brief but passionate cultural debate over what it meant when a man wore an earring in his right ear. Some said it signaled you were gay. Others said it was just style. Magazines published diagrams, and middle schoolers whispered about it like it was pirate code. Historians now look back and see that, yet again, earrings were serving as a personal lighthouse in a stormy cultural sea. Of course, it's not always rebellion. Sometimes earrings are still practical, just like they were for pirates. Sailors today, especially those in smaller or regional fleets, still talk about the gold hoop as a survival tool. It's rare now, but not gone entirely. You'll meet a fisherman in the Philippines who swears his earring is for the grave, or a Newfoundlander who says his father wore one to keep the sea from forgetting him. It's not the standard anymore, but it's not extinct either. And then there's the fashion world. Designers who know the power of pirate lore and use it to sell leather boots and gold studs. You've seen the runways, modern pirate core, all high-waisted breeches and ear jewelry the size of teacups. It's style with history baked in. Whether they know it or not, they're echoing the old pirate creed. Shine, stand out, and speak through the things you wear. But let's not pretend it's all glamour and catwalks. Sometimes the pirate earring is a punchline. Halloween costumes, plastic skulls, cheap gold hoops from party stores. It gets diluted, turned into kitsch. But even there, some part of the power sneaks through. Because here's the magic of pirate earrings. They're more than ornaments. They're symbols. They say you've been somewhere, that you've survived something, that you might not play by the rules and maybe never did. You think back now to all the stories you've heard on this journey. The sailor who used his earring as a bribe to escape prison. The woman who wore a shark tooth wrapped in silver as a reminder that she killed the beast herself. The old pirate whose rusty iron ring bled every day, but never let him forget. And now you with your tired feet and your salt-wrinkled shirt, you watching the moonlight reflect in your little gold hoop. You've crossed oceans tonight, not just water, but centuries. You've touched the reasons behind the myth, the rituals behind the sparkle. And what's wild is earrings outlived piracy itself. They passed on from the golden age into street corners, rock concerts, protest marches, bedrooms, movie sets, high-fashion runways, and teenage mirror selfies. They've changed shape, but not purpose. They still say, I'm someone, I matter, I have a story, and I'll wear it right here where you can't ignore it. Historians still debate how much of this legacy was by design and how much was made up after the fact. Did pirates really care about symbolism, or have we simply layered modern meaning over old habits? Hard to say, maybe both. Maybe pirates were just practical and we made them poetic, but that's the joy of it. The pirate story isn't over, it's just evolving. So tonight, as your eyes grow heavier and the stars above begin to blur together, know this: that tiny piece of metal in your ear or your imagination is more than just a loop. It's a key, a compass, a promise that even if the world forgets your name, some part of your story will still shimmer in the dark. The sea remembers, so do earrings. And now the sails are still. The ship rocks gently beneath you, nothing more than a cradle in the sea's wide arms. The stories have slowed, the waves hush you like a lullaby, and the wind doesn't whisper warnings anymore. It just sighs with you. Your hand rests lightly on your earlobe, warm from the memory of tales long past. Gold or not, real or imagined, it feels heavier now, more meaningful. Not just decoration, but declaration. You've traveled far tonight, not just across waters and centuries, but deep into the hidden corners of what it means to carry something ancient on your skin. And now, it's time to let it all go. Let the names blur, let the gunpowder fade from the air, let the cannonballs stop their roaring and the sails their flapping. Let your heart beat slow with the tide. Somewhere, a lantern swings slowly in the dark. A hammock creaks. A bell rings faintly in the distance, counting the quiet hours of the night. Breathe in once, deeply, and out, even slower. Whatever tomorrow brings, storms, calm seas, or another wild tale, you'll face it like a true sailor, marked, remembered, and maybe, just maybe a little luckier for it. Sleep well, Captain, and if you dream tonight, may your sails be full, your map be true, and your earring gleam like the first coin you ever stole.